Hey, welcome back to Album April. It's April 20th, and today I listened to The Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd. Originally, I'd planned for The Wall to be my Pink Floyd album for this month, but I ended up going with this one instead, because it's higher up on Rolling Stone's Top 500 and is also one of the best-selling albums of all time. However, I did not listen to it while also watching The Wizard of Oz, so you'll have to excuse me for that. My first thought was that when I began this month, I thought that the most avant-garde album was going to be Kid A, but Kid A looks almost ordinary compared to The Dark Side of the Moon. This album doesn't really have, solid different songs on it. There are obviously parts that are different from each other, but the songs sort of lead into each other. As one song ends, the other one will begin immediately, and they're all, connected to each other. There are also really long intros and outros that don't really sound all that connected with the song proper, so the lines between one song and the next are kind of hazy. It's pretty clear that this was meant to be listened to all in one go. The Dark Side of the Moon is also very instrumentally focused. Some of the songs have very few lyrics, a couple don't have any at all. When I was listening to it, whenever I heard singing, I would perk up a little bit, this is the important part. Though there was a pretty good guitar solo and a pretty good sax solo. Although the definition of song is a little loose on this album, I would say that my favorite track on Dark Side of the Moon is the closing track, Eclipse. Although I think it would be more accurate to say that my favorite part was the ending of Brain Damage into Eclipse. The album's arc was kind of building up to two different climaxes. The first one was an Us and Them, and the second one was at the very end with Brain Damage and Eclipse. While on that subject, Us and Them was also pretty good. I also liked The Great Gig in the Sky. Technically, it's an instrumental because there's not really any singing lyrics in it. There's spoken word at the beginning and the end, and the whole middle of it is operatic wordless singing by a female guest singer. Her name was Claire Torrey, and she did very well. I also like the touch of the money sounds being used in the song Money. Then there's the question of were there songs on this album I didn't like. Once again, the idea of songs is a little weird here, but there were parts of The Dark Side of the Moon that I didn't care for. It got a little boring at times. Clearly, this album is about vibes. You're supposed to put it on, sit back, relax, and let it wash over you. But I happen to have a very short attention span, and this album was not able to keep me, enraptured the whole time. I mentioned earlier about intros and outros, but sometimes intro or outro doesn't seem like the proper way to describe it. A lot of times, half of a certain song's runtime will be either the intro or the outro and not the song itself. I've heard the hype about this album being absolutely mind-blowing, but the music didn't resonate with me quite as much as it probably has with a lot of other people. So, do I think this album holds up? I mean, it's definitely still very interesting to listen to. It's not structured the way that you would expect an album that has sold as many copies as The Dark Side of the Moon to be structured. It's very loose, very dreamlike, it takes its time building up its intensity. I kind of prefer albums like yesterday's album To Pimp a Butterfly that also tells this overarching story, but each song is still its song and it's paced as such. This album wasn't really for me. I can respect it, there were a lot of good things in it, but it didn't blow my mind. Okay, thank you guys for listening, I'll see you tomorrow.